Hi, welcome to Banana Bites. I'm Trevani, and with me are Corey and Chris. And together we are the Banana Data Podcast crew. I always say this. And funnily enough, it is International Podcast Day today. So if you haven't already subscribed to the Banana Data Podcast, you should, because you're going to get to hear more of the kind of content that we're about to talk about today. So, what are we talking about today? Corey, take us away.
Thanks, Trevani. So before I start, let me just do something. I'm not a bot. Okay, good. We're good. Okay, today's Banana Bite is the good, the bot, the ugly. According to Cloudflare, 40% of internet traffic could be attributed to bot activity. So we're going to look at sort of the different dimensions that exist between different, types of bots. Generally, it has a pretty negative connotation. It's associated with a lot of bad stuff. So, Chris, is there good bots? Are there bad bots? Why do they misbehave? Why can't they all just behave and learn to respect each other? Like, what is going on?
Yes. First, let me just say this too. I'm not a bot as well. I think we're going to have to prove that to each other in some way. But yes, it is true that there are good bots out there. With that high volume of bots, we often hear of the bad ones, like fake accounts on social media websites, or bots that are posting spam to links, of advertisements and so on and so forth. But there's a lot of great bots out there too. There's some services that web scrape, for example, and gather information for us, like whenever we want to purchase a hotel or a flight, and comparing prices for us on one landing page, as an example of a good bot that's out there. Or even, we can think about robocalls. Robocalls can be annoying for, advertisements and things like that. But oftentimes we can get automated reminders that we have an appointment coming up or something of that nature, emergency alerts. So there's some good bots out there as well.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. We default to thinking bots are bad, and so we build out a lot of technology and tooling to keep them out of certain places. And this is, probably good, but then maybe sometimes we're building guardrails that really aren't doing the right job, and keeping out the wrong kind of bots and letting in the wrong kind. So I think there is a lot to be learned there, especially because bots are constantly learning. And we, as the humans who are trying to either avoid them or not, need to keep up.
And just a reminder, if you're not a bot, or even if you are, in the spirit of inclusivity, please comment below with any questions that you might have for us, and we'll be happy to answer them. And we won't even force you to do any Recaptcha. Sorry, my tongue. Recaptcha stuff to have to ask it. So please comment below.
I don't read binary though, so bots, please translate your questions first.
Yes. I guess the next part is sort of we'll be focusing on everyone's favorite three-letter algorithm, favorite three-letter acronym. There we go. NLP, natural language processing. So it seems like a pretty good thing. But like I was under the impression that bots are all malicious. So explain NLP and how bots work within that.
Well, bots aren't malicious. It's the people using the bots that are malicious, right? And so I think, there are a lot of interesting bots on Twitter where it's like, hey, roll up this thread for me so I can just quickly read through everything without having to click on each single tweet. There's bots to help alert, hey, someone mentioned XYZ in one of their articles or this or that. Do you want to check it out? So there are a lot of really good uses for bots using NLP. But then the question is, when the person behind the bot is not out for the best intentions, then you're going to get problems. And then you're going to get things that you're probably thinking of, like troll bots and, those spam comments about go here and buy my product that is silly or whatever it might be.
Yeah, with natural language processing and chat bots, for example, there are, again, it's a gray area. If deployed with well intentions, it can serve as a chat feature on a website to help solve pretty basic problems with troubleshooting internet or various customer service questions that you don't necessarily need a human to walk through the steps, and that's a positive use of it. But similarly, if you've got a bot that is on social media accounts trying to get people to friend them and solicit personal information, and buy things or exploit that information, that can be a bad usage. The algorithm essentially is the same with trying to have a conversation and solicit certain information, but the way in which it's used is where the bad actors come into play.
Well, yeah, and then I would also argue at the building of the model or the application, it's, again, maybe there are going to be bad actors or people who are just unintentionally doing things wrong in a way that then creates these bots that are kind of biased. So like the idea of, a bot that will flag offensive language. Well, something that's not offensive to me or to a majority of people might start getting flagged if enough people are going in and saying, no, this is offensive. This is offensive. And the word is like cats, and all the dog people are going in and like, are saying that. My dog would probably.
You're a dog person, right?
I am. My dog would ask me to do that probably if she could. But the point then is that now you're getting a source of truth from a group of people versus a sort of consensus that's been built broadly. So I think, like with any AI application, bots are just as subject to the potential for skew and bias, both in the building and training, and also the implementation.
Yeah, don't hate the bot, hate the game.
Oh, Corey, always with your little nifty sayings. Look at me, I'm like 80 years old saying nifty. Okay.
So we've made reference to this over the episode, and we have an episode coming out later this week that's going to be talking about this subject. But let's talk a little bit about Recaptcha Captcha, I'm not a robot. Generally, people will think that that's a pretty good standard, right? Because you don't want bots doing stuff that humans should be doing, and you want to be able to filter that out. But there's a little bit of a gray area there. Triveni, do you want to talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, so we'll talk about this on the episode when it releases on Friday. But, it's very easy for us to design things, or for people who design things like CAPTCHA and ReCAPTCHA to be like, oh, obviously, people coming to this website can look at these crazy letters and then type them out for me, and then I'll know that they're a person. And it's really sad because that kind of thought process, that kind of design process ends up excluding a lot of people who aren't going to be able to do that, right? And so like we tend to design for the quote unquote average user who will look like us or have the same capacities that we do. But for users who might be blind and rely on a like voice transcribing tool to like read websites to them, or for users who are colorblind and can't even like tell the difference, or whatever it might be, or dyslexic, like there are all sorts of disabilities that I think CAPTCHA can be really harmful about. And then, it's this weird conundrum of, I want to keep out the bots that aren't helping other people, but how do I distinguish between those two things?
Yeah. And just for the audience, CAPTCHAs are those kind of little weird things that you type in letters when you want to access a website, or identify the stoplights in this image. Those types of things that you see on websites that say, "I am not a robot." And the whole dilemma here is, how do we delineate between humans and non-humans? And, as Triveni mentioned, there's a lot of ethical concerns there for, the minority groups that may not be accounted for to serve the majority. But even beyond that, related to something we talked about a little bit earlier, is this arms race between development and, cat and mouse game of cats, becoming more sophisticated, mouses being able to evade the new methods by the cats, and cats, coming up with new ways to beat the mouse. And that's happening with CAPTCHAs as well. You're limited by predicting bot attacks based on the data we have from analyzing suspicious activity from past patterns. So, how do you prevent new attacks? Well, you don't know what to look for or how to account for those new attacks because you've just never seen it before. It's kind of the age-old question of how does a video go viral on YouTube? It's because it's unique and different, and there's something spectacular about it. Same thing with bots and new attacks. There's going to be something different that you've not thought of before. So it's a very interesting round.
Yeah, but I think there's even like a deeper thing there, which is that, like, think about the bots or the captchas where it's like, go tell me which ones are streetlights or storefronts or whatever. What's happening when I do that? Well, I'm telling Google or whoever that is doing the captcha that this picture is a storefront. This picture is a stoplight. I'm labeling information for them. And now that labeled data gets fed into an overall image recognition model, which in turn improves the ability for this tool to recognize images, which then gets deployed to bots that can then say, oh, I know how to do this, even though I'm not a human. And now we're, again, letting bots through the door. So like, it really is, like you're saying, an arms race where we need to stay, we want to use AI so that it's like, and we want it to be really good so that it's good for us, but we don't want it to be good so that it's good at being bad.
The arms race analogy is a really interesting one because we're necessarily, or maybe even unnecessarily, upping the ante. I mean, if the goal is to make bots smarter, then bots that are being built are going to be more sophisticated. Then it's going to be harder and harder to be able to determine that you are actually a human. So it's kind of almost a little bit like a race to the bottom, if you would. Like it's just kind of, we're kind of perpetuating this problem.
Well, and then like this whole idea around if somebody relies on technology and AI to live their life, does that all of a sudden mean they're not human because CAPTCHA doesn't think so? Like it's so icky, right? Like that's just, for lack of a better word. I mean, we haven't even developed AI that is sentient and conscious and like is AI life and our AI is human. We haven't even gotten
Corey,
into that,
right?
Except for Corey. Corey's a bot. I'm pretty sure.
I actually had you fooled the entire time. I am in fact a bot. So.
But like we haven't even gotten to that stage in our world, and we're already at this point where people who rely on AI and technology to do things in their day to day are feeling like dehumanized by these kinds of terms and ideas, and it's really sad that we're not designing inclusively in this regard.
Yeah, and this gray area is something that we'll get into a lot more detail in the upcoming episode release. So I don't want to give away too much for that, but kind of stay tuned for that. But yeah, I mean, it is something that we really need to be cognizant of. And as AI gets more and more sophisticated, is it helping us in terms of convenience, or is it kind of displacing human beings to a certain regard and various jobs or free labor, by virtue of us helping the AI to become more sophisticated? So it is a big dilemma. As you said, it's kind of murky. And, we're all trying to figure it out one step at a time.
Yeah. Well, isn't that life?
One day at a time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's all we've got for today. I know that Corey needs to go for his oil change.
Yes.
And so
I'm feeling very rusty.
Good man. But so as a reminder, we talk about We talk about things like bots and CAPTCHA on the Banana Data podcast, available wherever you listen to podcasts. And we talk about a lot of other fun and interesting things. So you should definitely check us out. And I guess we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Say bye, boys.
Beep boop.
Bye bye.